Welcome to a screencast on the functional anatomy of the ear. So in this screencast, we'll be describing the gross anatomical structures of the external, middle, and inner ear, looking at the functions of those parts of the ear. We'll explore the pathway that sound travels in the ear and look at the sensorineural pathways associated with hearing and equilibrium. So hopefully then you'll be able to explain how sound waves are transduced by the structures of the middle ear. So here we go. This is a coronal section or frontal section through the ear. The external ear is first off the pinna or the auricle. So this is your earlobe area down here. So this is what would be pierced if you had a pierced ear. The external acoustic meatus. So this is pronounced meatus. This is also known as the auditory canal. You'll probably most often hear it referred to as the auditory canal. So this is if you were going to use a Q-tip. This is where the Q-tip would go to clean out your ear. So this is all the external ear. So outer or external ear. The middle ear, moving on to the middle ear then, is separated from the external ear by the tympanic membrane or the eardrum. So this membrane stretches across that auditory canal. And that tympanic membrane is attached to the three bones of the middle ear. These are also known as ossicles, and they have specific names. The first is the malleus, the second is the incus, and the third is the stapes. These are the smallest bones in the body, and they are paired, so there's three on the right, three on the left ear. So malleus, incus, and stapes. The inner ear here, the middle ear, this area right here in red, is open air, and it is open to the back of the throat or the pharynx, which would be down here, by the pharyngotympanic or auditory tube. Now, don't confuse this auditory tube with the auditory canal. So this auditory tube is also sometimes referred to as the Eustachian tube. And normally this Eustachian tube or this pharyngotympanic tube is closed, and so the air pressure inside here, if it's different than the air pressure on the other side of the tympanic membrane, may cause you to feel like your ears have to pop. And so what you do is you'd yawn, open up your mouth, and that opens up this auditory tube, the Eustachian tube, to then equalize the air pressure in your mouth, which is open to the outside world, and the air pressure that's the outside world here. So when you close your mouth and your jaw is closed, this auditory tube is also closed off. It kind of just collapses on itself. Actually, not up in there, right down here. So there's the middle ear. Also, this middle ear, sometimes you get bacteria that may get up into here and cause an infection in there, and in this middle ear, and you have otitis media. Otitis media. Itis is an inflammation of the middle ear. Right? So you have lots of kids get ear infections. And this is what's going on. You get all this bacteria that's growing in here, and this creates a lot of pus and inflammation, and that puts pressure on this tympanic membrane or the eardrum. And so kids that have chronic ear infections, what they do is they have a little surgery, and they cut a little hole in the tympanic membrane, and they put a little tube in there, and then any fluid that's in there is able to drain out and relieve that pressure. So there you go. This is also known as as tubes in your ear there. Finally then, the inner ear. The inner ear is actually encased in bone. So this bone is sectioned here so that you can see these different parts. Coming through the bone, here is vestibulocochlear nerve. So this is cranial nerve number 3. Right? Sorry, not 3. It's 8. Having a problem with the pen. So this is vestibulocochlear is cranial nerve number 8. And that vestibulocochlear nerve has two parts. The part that's going to go to the vestibule, so this is the vestibule part, and these parts right here are the semicircular canals. So the semicircular canals and the vestibule deal with equilibrium or balance. So vestibule and semicircular canals deal with equilibrium or balance. Then the part that's connected to the vestibule that is kind of curly-cued here like a snail is called the cochlea. And this cochlea is the part of the ear that's involved with hearing, right, and detecting sound waves. The two parts to this vestibule that are associated with the cochlea are first the oval window. This is associated with hearing, and then the round window, which is also associated with hearing. Now, this oval window is attached to the stapes, which of course that stapes is attached to the incus, and that is attached to the malleus. So here's what happens when a sound wave travels in your ear. Here comes the sound wave in your ear. It's going to hit this tympanic membrane. That tympanic membrane is going to vibrate. This vibration of the tympanic membrane vibrates the malleus, which vibrates the incus, which vibrates the stapes. That stapes is attached to this oval window, and inside of this vestibule and inside this cochlea there is fluid. And we'll look at that detail in microanatomy on another screencast. So that fluid then is going to have waves inside that travel through this cochlea, and those waves are going to be detected by hair cells, which then trigger action potentials, and then action potentials are sent down the cochlear part of vestibulocochlear nerve. Right. So again, there is the gross anatomy of the ear. I'd recommend taking a look at the animation and the images that are down there, and those are posted on Blackboard in a URL in the URL folder. So just another view of this middle ear, and here we have a medial view, so you have to kind of orient yourself a little bit so you're on the inside looking out. So you're in the middle ear, right? And so first you obviously identify here the tympanic membrane, right? The stapes is the stirrup, looks like a horse's stirrup. Right? The incus, and then here's the malleus. Right? Malleus, or mallet, or hammer. Incus is the anvil. Here is the auditory tube, or the Eustachian tube. And then here in yellow is vestibulocochlear nerve. Right? Or the chorda, here they have it as the chorda tympani nerve. This is going to be actually associated with the muscles that are holding the malleus, incus, and stapes there in place. Finally, the sensorineural pathway of hearing here. So here again we see the vestibule, we see the semicircular canals, and these are associated with equilibrium and balance. But then here is the cochlea part, the snail, the curlicue, and this is hooked up to, of course, vestibulocochlear nerve. Now, action potentials are going to be sent via this vestibulocochlear nerve. Right? They're going to synapse with interneurons here in the cochlear nucleus of the brainstem, in the medulla and the pons area, and then you have several synapses, right, in ascending tracks up to the midbrain area. Then you're going to have another synapse, right, travel through the thalamus, right, another synapse in the thalamus, so there's a nucleus right there, and then finally tracks radiating out here to the auditory cortex, which is gray matter, and this is in the temporal lobe. So processing sound, much as you are doing right now, you're stimulating hair cells here to depolarize to threshold, to generate action potentials that travel vestibulocochlear nerve, to nuclei in the brainstem, ascending tracks up to nuclei in the midbrain, sending action potentials to nuclei in the thalamus, and then finally radiating out to the auditory cortex and the temporal lobe. there would be a similar pathway down the vestibular part if you're dealing with equilibrium, and those fibers, again, would synapse with nuclei here, but then end up in the cerebellum, right? Not shown necessarily on this diagram here. So the cerebellum is going to be the place where your body is processing the sense of balance. Okay. So again, there's a quick review of the functional anatomy of the ear, right? The external ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear, as well as sensorineural pathways from the vestibulocochlear nerve to the auditory cortex. Okay. If there are questions, bring them to class. Thank you.